abyss of partisanship that was dividing the members in a very dysfunctional and unhealthy way. And that is not the way to be strong as a union. It's antithetical to that. And we see it on a macro level in our nation too. When we fight each other because of partisanship, then somebody wins, but it's not us. And that is as old as time. The Romans invented it. It's called divide and conquer. So I wanted to come in, and much to the surprise of the people that voted, that didn't vote for me, and maybe also for the people that did vote for me, I felt like the only way to bring this union together was to enter without bias, without histrionics, but just to have my door open to every single one of the members so that I can hear what they had to say. And what came out of that was a beginning of trust. And it was what I call the Fran plan. And the secret sauce is time and patience. So when it was time to assemble the negotiating committee, I put together a group of people who were experienced people, very smart people, people that had been in all different negotiations in the past, people that were new with fresh ideas and understanding, people that had great passion for their communities. And even though 17 people vote, we became 44 who had a voice, and everyone spoke with great passion and conviction. And it took us always a very long time for everybody to fully appreciate what was happening in that community and why it was important. And for the first time, people who were otherwise marginalized in the past felt heard. And that was the great success of our negotiating committee. And so we started to come together as a family. People that were completely at odds from another time came together. And for me, the whole thing, the weight of it all was extremely stressful. I, many times had to stay home on Zoom and, lead in my bathrobe because it was just so stressful. And going into the room with the AMPTP and everything, it was a lot. So if I could be home with my dog, it was helpful. And I want to thank, Jody and Linda and Tom, the vice chairs, for helping me, allowing me to do that. And I'm just so grateful for them. As you know, I'm a systems analyst daughter. And so very early on during our plenary, I recognized that there was a disconnect between the new streaming platform and the contract that we were working on. And I felt there was no way that anything about this contract was going to really make a significant difference in the lives of our members who were working on the streaming platform. The contract itself needed to change. And so we decided together that we needed to go into another pocket of revenue. For 35 days, like a broken record, we said we need to get into another pocket. We need to get new money from somewhere. And every single time we brought it up, the AMPTP said no. And finally, Duncan said, we're not taking this out of our proposal. We will hold it, but it isn't going anywhere. And finally, towards the end of the unprecedented extension that we gave to this negotiation, because we didn't want to leave any stone unturned. I said, we're going to go over your heads. We want to talk to your bosses. And Duncan and I went into a side room and we called several of the people who were CEOs of the AMPTP member body. And we explained to them that we needed another source of revenue because the people that were working in the streaming platforms didn't have the tail of earnings that they did in linear television. And it was making their lives very difficult to remain a working actor. And somehow they had to accommodate us. And we said to them then, it did not matter the mechanism, it didn't even matter the amount. What mattered was that we got into a new pocket. Well, they said no. And so we had to go on strike. But we're hoping that we would be able to keep talking. So on July 14th, our unprecedented amount of strike authorization votes was exercised, and our national board gave us the okay to move forward with the strike. And from July 14th to October 3rd, we never heard from the AMPTP. We went to the press and said, why? What are they doing? What are they waiting for? Are they trying to smoke us out? Well, honey, I quit smoking a long time ago. So I think that they realized that they were facing a new kind of leadership in me and Duncan. And we deflected their intimidation tactics. They had to acknowledge that we were demanding respect. And so the idea of a revenue share, we kept going back to it. Okay, you don't like the 2%. What about 1%? Okay, you don't think you can do that. It's a bridge too far. What about the 57-cent postage stamp concept where we get that per subscriber per year? No. But what happened was they needed to meet the moment. They heard that something had to be done or this was not going to end well. So they worked internally to come up with some kind of a modality that worked for all the different AMPTP members who were currently either fully entrenched in streaming or dabbling in streaming, but somehow they came together with a model that they offered to the WGA, which was accepted by them. We knew that that wasn't going to accomplish what we needed to accomplish. But as my Buddhist wisdom teaches me, the tallest of the bamboo trees are able to lean the farthest. And so I had to wrap my mind around the fact that we needed to make this work if we were going to get into another pocket. And I'm a girl from Flushing. So to me, money's money. It's just as green wherever it comes from. Hand it over. So when Duncan and Ray came up with the fund concept, which would allow us to use their mechanism to put the money into our fund so that we could distribute it with a wider net and benefit more, that was the thing that needed to happen. And, you know, AI was also a deal breaker. If we didn't get that package, then what are we doing? We're not really able to protect our members in the way that they needed to be protected. Because in the world of AI, 3 months is equivalent to a year. So if we didn't get those barricades, what would it be in 3 years or 2.5 years? It would be so far out of our grasp. We would always be chasing something, but never quite get it. So those two things at one of the last meetings that we were all in together was made important to them. And then Duncan also, in a sidebar with Carol, said, please listen carefully. We must get the fund and we must get the AI. And even though we were not talking about money anymore, at that point, the money had passed the $1 billion mark, the largest deal in our industry history. And they already broke pattern. And our lowest paid was getting the 11% minimum increase that we had wanted from the beginning. And the performers were offered 7%, which broke pattern. And over again, there were things that we were achieving. But the fund and the last piece of AI still was outstanding. So, and when they used the press and said that, oh, we gave them $1 billion.
Oh, what happened to the microphone? Hold on now. Oh no. Oh no. Why did the sound cut off?
Oh. Oh, okay. I thought we were having an earthquake or something. I got scared. Anyway, we were in a meeting with the AMPTP, and they were already leaking to the press, oh, it's over $1 billion. But he said, wait a minute, $500 million isn't being shown for. Where is it? Creative accounting? Funny money? Or as one of the CEOs said, phantom expenses. And we said, absolutely not. Every single dollar that we're negotiating has to be shown to benefit our members. You could just forget that right now, misters and ma'am. So that was something that made a big difference, because when we say we made a deal for $1.011 billion, that's real money that they had to yield to and finally agree, okay, we'll talk in your modality of how the money gets spent. So many things, were developing and good things were happening, but still those two things were outstanding. We got things that we never got before, like performance capture is now in the contract where it never was. New regulations for members when it comes to auditioning and interviews, because there was also it was like a wild thing that happened that just accelerated over COVID, with them asking our members to do everything when they have to have an audition and an interview. And so barricades had to be put on that, and new regulations had to be set over and over, blank pages filled with language. And then, I had never been in this position before, but attacking the woman leader, trying to discredit her, making me out to be either overly aggressive or overly frivolous when they never ever talked about a Duncan in the room, was something that I had never quite experienced for its low-hanging fruit, and a ploy that I think should be beneath anyone. But I shared Buddhist wisdom with them in the room. I tried to put it into the context of the importance of what we were doing, the enormity of what we were discussing that didn't end in this room, but actually was going to impact all of humanity. And yes, I even had a little heart-shaped plushie toy that a little girl gave to me to give me confidence. And I said I was going to keep it with me through this whole thing and in turn keep her with me too.
Aw.
But they weaponized all that to discredit me. And what I did was turn it around into a movement for women and girls because I don't have to emulate male energy to lead. I can lead with intellect. I can lead with wisdom. I can lead with empathy. I can lead with morality.
Love it.
I can have a plushie toy with me and I can lead and I can still rock a red lip. So I turned that on their head and gave women an opportunity to see what leadership could look like if you just be who you are, your authentic person without apology. The days turned into weeks, the weeks turned into months. One of our NEDCOM members passed away, and we all wept and prayed and shared stories that he was not going to make it all the way through. One of our to take the rest of the journey with us. We became weary over time, as did our strike captains, as did our staff. It was extremely demanding, a lot of pressure. I saw cardiologists, pulmonologists, internists, you name it, everyone says it's stress. So, as families do, our negotiating committee, sometimes we would laugh, sometimes we would hug, sometimes we would cry, sometimes we would yell. Each step of the way, we grew towards each other into what I am calling the nucleus of the golden age for SAG AFTRA. But then there were things that they weren't budging on. Things that we needed to try and get, but we weren't getting. Things that it was becoming clear we're going to have to wait for the next contract. What about the respect package? Aston shouted. Rest periods. What about meal penalties? Ron Ostro said. What about motion capture and facial capture in addition to performance capture? Zeke challenged. When is audio description going to get in the contract? Nicole shouted. What about getting expert practitioners that can work on the members who have with different kinds of hair textures and skin tones? Cried Natalia and Michelle and Avis. When are stunt people going to be recognized for their massive contributions and compensated? Demanded Court
It's high time.
Jason. There's a lack of consideration by the industry at large that auditions are work in and of itself, and that too must be changed. We need to let performers do their job and have full focus on their audition and not have to be the casting director and the technician too. Meal penalties hadn't changed in 63 years,
Jeez.
Shouted Charlie. For months, we fought for it all, appealing to their sense of right and fair, but to no avail. This NEDCOM are very special because they come from different places. They come from different career paths and passions, but together as volunteers, they all fought the righteous fight on behalf of 160,000 members. back channeling became the alternate universe, trying to reach the CEOs, A-listers, power agents, top lawyers intervened through Duncan and I. In the 11th hour, we still didn't have the fund or the complete AI package. Duncan had a sidebar with Carol. Jolie Fisher back channeled for AI. And on the eve of the 7th, after I said to the negotiating committee, we're not going to vote tonight, as recommended to me by David Jolliffe, one of our senior negotiators, I got a call from Duncan, who said it looks like we will get both. But to get the fund, we had to agree to a 75-25 split, which meant that 75% of the money would go to the members who were on those shows, which met the criteria that the AMPTP set, which frankly is a thimble worth of shows on these platforms. But to meet that criteria, those shows in linear television would have definitely gone on to syndication. So they deserve to have the bonus. And the 25% that would be in the fund would be spread in a way that we could decide at a later time that we felt was fair to the people that are on the platforms. Again, I felt like, is this a win or a loss? But we're getting the money. We opened a new revenue stream. It's what we said in the beginning to them. It didn't matter the mechanism. It didn't matter the amount. What mattered was that we got into another pocket. And we did. So I had to once again be fluid and wrap my mind around that and not make the perfect the enemy of the good. I recalled what we said to the CEOs back in July, and I began to think about what the next steps would be. We open up this new stream of revenue. We write language on a page that was now blank. And maybe next time it won't be what shows get 20% of the audience. Maybe it'll be 10%, so more shows will qualify. Maybe it won't be 100%. Maybe it'll be 125%. So the people that are not in those shows can share more for more. And suddenly I started to get my mojo back. I started to think and realize this is an ongoing living thing, a contract. And we're not over. We're only just beginning. But get it on the page, get that language, get into that pocket, and let's go, baby. So
that was a woo.
One of my heroes is Frederick Douglass, and he said a quote that I say often, which is, power concedes nothing without demand. It never has, and it never will. So we hold in our hands a record-breaking contract that has broken new ground and pattern again and again and again. And I want to thank the AMPTP for recognizing the gravity of this historic and seminal negotiation and meeting the moment. And I can proudly say we began this journey, the largest entertainment union in the world, and we finish it the most powerful. Thank you very much.